Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Jodielynn isn't joining us today. She's got something else that she has to do this week, but she will be back again next week, and we'll all be looking forward to that. But we are not bereft of talent today, because I have a really unique guest joining me today. In fact, that really is who she is. She is unique. No, I mean, seriously, that's her name. Her name is unique. No, you're not getting this. Her name is literally unique, beginning with a U. That's her name. Okay, now you got it. Okay, good. So, no, her name is Unique Figueroa. She is the podcast host of a podcast called, not surprisingly, Becoming Unique. And she's joining me to talk about self-love and self-care, two of our favorite topics. So, hi, Unique. How you doing today?
Hi, Walt. Thank you so much for having me today. And I am doing amazing. I hope the same is for you.
I'm doing very well, thank you. And we found out geographically we're actually located fairly close to each other, because Unique's in Manhattan and I'm in Connecticut, which is a neighbor of New York. So that just kind of makes the world even smaller, which is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, we're in the tri-state area, New York,
right.
New Jersey, Connecticut.
That's it. Yeah, the place. That's the place to be. Absolutely. So, well, give us a little bit of a background about Unique Figueroa. I mean, first of all, you got to tell the story of the name. I mean, that's a great name right there.
Well, thank you. My parents gave me my name, and I asked my mother, like, is there a story behind my name? And she was like, no, I just named you Unique. But if you meet her, I guess you would kind of get it, because she's a big, I'm not saying a big personality, but you know when she's in the room.
Yes. She's one of those people who has an impact on a room.
Yes, when she's in the room. So I can see her, unique. And
your name is perfectly unique too. That's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, but we are all unique, as I say to people, people like, oh, aren't you unique? And I always say, we all are unique as well. And, and like you said, I have a podcast called Becoming Unique for multiple reasons. One, it's my name. And then two, a few years ago, Michelle Obama came out with her book called Becoming. And during one of her press interviews, I think it was with Oprah, she made a comment saying, I don't like when people ask children, what do they want to be when they grow up, as if growing up was a final destination. We are all always becoming. Yeah. And when she said that, it just really hit with me, because I definitely think I spent a lot of my life like, okay, I arrived at adulthood. This is it. I kind of put the down, and thinking that, there was no more, what do you want to be when you grow up? No more imagination, no more like, I can do any and everything. It's like, okay, this is what life is, and just, rolling with the punches. And, and that came out around the time when I was unconsciously going through a transformation within myself that I was unaware of. Mm-hmm. I started, taking yoga classes. This evolution was happening, and for me to receive that comment from her, it came at the perfect time. If she would have said that when maybe I was in a different mindset in my life, I may not have been able to receive what she said. But because I was already on this path of just evolving within myself, it kind of was like, yes, I could be anything I want to be anytime in my life. I don't have to wait until I grow up. So I was like, okay, now before I start the podcast, I was doing a YouTube, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to call my YouTube Becoming Unique. You're just going to watch me just keep evolving within myself. And as I'm doing this, I want to share it with the world, share things, because if I'm learning this at 40 something years old, for the first time or whatever I'm doing, that means I'm not the only person that may have been unaware of whatever I'm talking about.
That's common. I'm convinced that is common. I know it was true for me. It's true. I think it's probably been true for 90 to 95% of the people who've been guests on this podcast, probably true for people who've been guests on your podcast as well. This is
Yeah.
a very common human experience. We go
Yeah.
through something and then we realize afterward we went through it. We didn't know
Yeah.
it when we were going through it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I felt like, okay, I'm evolving into becoming me. And I was like, oh my God, my name is perfect because all of us are unique. And
Mm,
let this platform be a place where anyone can feel safe in becoming themselves.
that's beautiful. I love that. And
Thank
it's
you.
important. It's really important. It's one of the two themes that I like to hit upon a lot here on the podcast. One is the importance of self-love, and that's what you're talking about with
Mhm,
the self-actualization, self-knowledge, self-care.
mhm.
And the other part is what I call social connectedness, the connections that we have with others. Because to me, that's the magic formula. When you have both of those, they're not only feeding each other, but they're also feeding your life. They're turning your life into the kind of life that you want
Uh-huh.
most to
Yeah.
have. So when you're talking about this idea of becoming unique, not just for yourself, but being an example, because that's really what you are. You're an example to everyone who's following you.
Hmm.
That's exciting because what you're promoting is, yeah, let's take care of ourselves. Let's connect with each other. Let's do this. Let's do this
Yeah.
thing called life,
Yes, exactly. Let's do this thing called life. I like that.
right?
And then like what Michelle Obama said, like, life doesn't stop when you become an adult. Like you can keep going. You
Yeah,
can
how
keep
about
going with this. It's
that?
not like, okay, I grew up, I became an accountant, and this is what life is. If you wanted to go fly your airplane, why can't you go fly your airplane and
Absolutely.
you're 42 years old? Why can't you study this at this time? Like, why not?
Why
And
not?
that's kind of like one of my like affirmations I like to say to myself, like, why not? Like, not
Yeah.
not affirmations, but like what do you call them? I can't even think. I'm like tongue twisted right now. But just like one of the sayings that I like to say to myself. Oh,
Sure.
mantras. That's what I was
A
looking for.
mantra.
Like
Okay. Yeah.
mantras. I'm
Well,
like,
that
not
qualifies.
affirmation. Huh?
Yeah. That qualifies as a mantra. That's a good one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. And,
Exactly.
and I also, I'm somebody who likes to take something, because we express a lot of things in negative terms. I like to flip them around and express them in positive terms.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of why not, I think I'd probably say why yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. I like
Yeah.
that. You know, it I talk about the power of I am a lot,
Mm,
because as I was telling you before we started the podcast, is this podcaster I listened to. His name is Jim Quick.
mhm.
But I told you about something he told me by saying, if you want to learn something, teach it. But another thing that he said that stuck with me is that two of the most smallest words, but the most powerful words in the English language is I am, because
Mm,
what comes after it defines you.
yes.
So, a lot of times we are, if even if you're sick, you may be like, I am sick. Oh, I'm sick. I'm always sick. And let's flip it. I am healing, because, your cells, the universe is listening to you. And whatever you're
I love
defining
it.
about yourself, that's what you're going to become.
Yeah.
So just bringing mindfulness to how powerful the I am is, and
Mm,
catching yourself throughout the day. Like, you can say,
yes.
oh, I'm not good with this. Oh, I
Oh,
can't do that. All day long, you're saying these types of things to yourself and you're not even noticing it. It's like on autopilot,
right. Yeah.
truly on autopilot. And just having this conversation to bring the awareness behind the I am is just so, so important, because, it's just important, because I think that's kind of like getting down to the foundation of like self-care and self-love, is just being mindful of that self-talk that we're having with ourselves. Mhm.
Totally. Oh, I totally agree. In fact, I would go even a little bit further and say that our mindset not just defines how we feel about ourselves, it defines what happens in all of our life. Every
Mhm.
single moment, every single step of the way, our mindset creates what's coming up next in some way,
Exactly.
shape, or manner or form. I mean, it's just going to. Um,
Yes.
and like you're saying, we do have this tendency to beat ourselves up. We beat the crap out of ourselves with some of the ways that we think to ourselves. If we treated our best friend the way we treat ourselves, we wouldn't have a best friend. I mean, it's really
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. We would be like, oh no, telling the next one, did you know what she said to me, girl?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how dare she talk to me? And yet you're saying the exact same things to yourself all the
yeah.
time.
There's
The
another one
exact,
that goes along with it that I've been noticing, and I've been particularly noticing it myself lately. And I'm saying, okay, I really got to change this one.
Mhm.
Because when you get off the track, if you can do it, it takes a little practice, and anybody can do it. But when you it's off the track of beating yourself up, there's a tendency to want to beat other people up in your mind,
Mhm.
and it's like it's almost worse because you're still on
Yeah.
the same negative track.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
still
it's like you want to try to pull out the negative in that person to make you feel good about yourself.
exactly,
And
yeah.
we have to try our best, because I know society has also brainwashed us to think that's the way to do things. Like we're just
Hmm.
seeing examples from all around us. Like it comes from somewhere as well too. So we're seeing examples within our household. We're seeing examples on the news, social media, and all these different places. And then it starts to become who we are. So this is also why it's very important for us to get really clear on who we are, what our values are, because if we are not like grounded and understand who we are, we have the opportunity for all of these negative seeds to come into play within ourselves, and then for all of these outside influences to come in and check in and take root within us.
Right, exactly, yeah. And that's a scary prospect. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, that's a really scary. I remember the first time that I became aware of just how many negative thoughts I had. It
Mm-hmm.
scared the daylights out of me because
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea how I was going to overcome all those thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
But
terrifying.
the mindfulness, like I said, just having this
Yeah.
conversation and bringing the awareness around it. Because, like I said, those thoughts are on autopilot. We don't even know we're having them. And
Mm.
it's just like something as simple as saying, like, we may say, oh, this is too hard. This is too hard. And then,
Mm.
but now we done told ourselves we can't do it because it's too hard. But instead of saying it's too hard, we can say, you know what? Let me keep trying at this. I'll keep
That's
trying.
great. Yeah, that's really good.
We got just starting to have awareness of it. Or even if you can't think of how to flip it around at that moment, maybe take note to it. Pull out your phone, take a note, and say what negative thought you said. And then when you get home, or when you're sitting still, sit there and think about, how can I flip this. Flip it, or even do a Google search. How, what's the opposite of it's too hard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
know
Yeah.
um Yeah, or like you say, oh, I can't do this, or or you can question, how can I get better at this?
Yeah.
And then once you
That,
question, how can I get better at this? Then now, we live in an amazing time where we have the access to the World Wide
right.
Web, where we
Yeah.
have literally access to the world
Yeah.
within our palms of our hands. Where
Right.
20 years ago, we did not have access to the world.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we literally we would be like, I can't do this. And you would
Mm.
really believe it, because you just, if
I
you,
was one.
yeah, you're, and then also if you're a product of your environment and you just don't see anywhere around you that, let's say you want to fly a plane.
Mhm.
Oh, that's so cool. Planes are flying in the air. I would love to do that, but I can't do that.
Mhm.
And then now it's like, now we have access. Google, how can I fly a plane? And then
Mhm.
you can
Yeah.
get resources, discovery class, or whatever the case is. I'm just doing something really extreme, like flying the plane. But 20 years ago, you would just be standing there. If you don't know a pilot, you don't know anyone that works in, aviation, it seemed impossible. But like now we have so much advantage in our hands where we can literally flip the negative thought or something we think we couldn't do by a Google search.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. I think there's another thing too that I found has really helped me a lot, and I'll be curious to know what your take is on it. Um, because, like I said earlier, I mean, I remember very clearly how I was overwhelmed by how many negative thoughts there were, and how I was going to overcome all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the earliest tips that a guest on the podcast actually gave me was, well, instead of worrying about all those negative thoughts, how about finding one that you're able to flip and then celebrating it? Because the
Mm-hmm.
celebration actually helps to reinforce a new kind of loop that wasn't there before. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
oh, and that actually works really well. Because the more
Yeah.
that you celebrate that kind of thing, the more you tend to focus on that kind of thing. Maybe not perfectly,
Yeah.
but a lot more often. And that's really what we're aiming for. How can we increase the frequency of where we're giving our attention?
Yeah. I think gratitude is a huge part of it. A lot of times we find it so quick to find a complaint about something or a negative something, but how about holding gratitude for, all the all the amazing things that's happening? Have gratitude
Mhm.
that you was able to turn the shower on and you had hot water.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
every single day, 300, let's say 364 days of the year, you turn the shower on and you have hot water. And then now, and you never hold gratitude for it. But that one day the hot water is not working, your life feels like it's coming to an end. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, how dare this building not have hot water? Oh my, and there's
Right.
all this negative energy. But if we were to learn to hold gratitude for that hot water every single day for the past 364 days, that one day we didn't have hot water, we'd be okay with it. Be
Yeah.
like,
It'd be like, oh, okay. It's just
well,
one day.
maybe the pipes are busted today.
Mhm.
Things happen, but you know what? The building's been doing really good. I've had hot water every single day. One day I can sacrifice one day without having hot water.
And then
If
the really great thing is the next day they fixed the water pipe, so you got the hot water again.
Yeah, and then even with reviews, and I'm guilty of this, like I don't necessarily, like, you get an item and you're being asked to review it, and it's like 99% of the time I don't review it. But and I feel like my husband will say this all the time, like if something comes out bad, go on the internet and give them a bad review.
Mm. Hmm. Sure.
Because something didn't work according to the way he may feel it's supposed to work. And it's like, what, people are so quick to give a bad review on something, but what about all those things that actually worked amazingly all the time?
Yeah.
Or that salesperson that helped a salesperson, it could give you amazing customer service. Are we stopping, to write that letter to the store manager? But someone would
Hmm.
surely stop and write that store letter to the manager if something negative happened. But
Mm.
if we start to reshift and just start taking gratitude for all the amazing things that happen with us throughout the day, it will start to shift the energy within ourselves. And it's, yes, it may be hard at times, because we take all of this for granted. We take that
Mm.
we're talking on the internet right now for granted. Like,
Right.
all of this is a luxury. It's like, it's like
Yeah.
I hold so much gratitude for everything that we're able to do right now.
Me
You
too.
know,
Yeah.
so if something does go wrong, if something is a little off, I can be I could be more okay with that because I just held so much space to be grateful for all that is going right.
That's beautiful. I love that. I'm reminded of something too. My background is in IT. I was one of the very earliest computer adapters back in the early 1980s, and that actually became a basis for my career to basically help other people with computers because they couldn't handle computers.
Hmm.
And I remember very early on, one of the things that I ran into was that people were deathly afraid they were going to break the computer if they hit the wrong button. And I had to
Uh-huh.
kind of train them out of that mentality. And I tried a number of different approaches. You know what approach actually worked the best? The one that worked the best was when I said to them, we get upset when the computer doesn't do what we expect, or there's an error or doesn't have the right connection or whatever the problem may be. But that's not what's so amazing about computers. What's so amazing about computers is that they work at all.
Yeah.
And when you think
Exactly.
about it that way, all of a sudden you say, yeah, how do they work? How does that actually do that?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly. Exactly. Because we don't have to be doing this. Our
No,
ancestors wasn't doing this.
not at all. Yeah. And,
This is
and, and the funny
new.
thing is, when I explained that to somebody who was having trouble with it, I think it did two things. First of all, it distracted them from the fact they were frustrated by whatever it was they couldn't quite get. But the
Hmm.
other thing it did is it gave them a sense of appreciation they hadn't had a minute ago. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is actually pretty cool. And when you can appreciate the thing that's kind of frustrating you, you stop
Hmm.
being so frustrated. Now because you can't feel both appreciation and frustration at the same time. You can feel one, you can
Exactly.
feel the other. You can't really feel both of them. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, appreciation. Yeah, it goes right along with the gratitude. Just
It does.
appreciative for what we already have instead of
Yeah.
like, being in a place of like, oh, I wish I could have this. Like, appreciate what you already got.
Mm.
Because a lot of times that's what also keeps us in a place of, sometimes, stuckness or sadness because we're thinking about what we wish we had instead
Mm.
of appreciating what's already here at this moment.
It's hard to remember that sometimes, but
Hmm.
it's important to remember it because
Yeah,
that's the way out.
yeah,
That's the escape route. We just
the
kind
way
of
out.
we skip it sometimes.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's so easy when you realize that that's the escape route. Like, oh yeah, I don't have to be fretting anymore.
yeah, yeah. Like we want, like it's like we want the universe or God to graduate us to the next thing, but the universe is looking as like, I can't send you there. You're not even appreciating what you got here.
Right? Yeah,
Appreciate that.
exactly. So, how long you been doing becoming unique? How long you been doing your podcast?
I started in 2020 during the
Okay,
pandemic, so June of 2020.
perfect
So
timing.
I just made 2 years. I'm a little over 2 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a beautiful platform. I say it's a lifestyle podcast with a focus around wellness.
Hmm.
So, every week is different. One week I may be having a dietitian on to talk about gut health, and the next week I'm having a conversation with someone just about being enough. So
Yeah.
it's a place for you to vibrate higher. So all of the conversations that I am having on the podcast with, a professional, whatever field that I'm speaking with, it's coming from a place for all of us to, for everyone to take, if they're open to take it, to vibrate higher. It's high vibrational content. If we're talking, like I said, if we're talking about gut health and you bringing awareness around this and, awareness around your diet. And so this is for you to vibrate higher. This is for you to, be within your body vibrating higher. And the same thing, having the conversation about being enough is kind of similar to this conversation here. Just bringing awareness into, the self talk we're having with ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, the self-care, the self-love, just bringing awareness to all of that. Because a lot of times I feel like in this society that's moving faster and faster every day, everyone is looking for the magic blue pill, but
Oh
there
yeah.
is no magic blue pill. It's about being consistent with, with the formula or the prescription that you have to create for yourself. And I say that also, like, what may work for me may be completely different from what works for you. So it's
Mhm.
about you creating your prescription. And my podcast is about presenting you with plenty of informative information, with tools that you take from it, what you take from it. You don't have to say, oh, that dietitian says I need to do X, Y, and Z. She gave you the tools and you take from it what you need to take out that toolbox. And everything that may not be for you, because every one of us, are created different. And what may work for me may be completely different from what works for you. And if you know about Ayurvedic, like there's different doshas. So like me and my husband are like complete opposites. Like he is like fire, like it's like he's hot, I'm cold. Like, so like our diets need to be different. Like I love to just have soup all the time when he will just eat ice cream all day. And it's
Oh
like,
my.
like he needs more cooling, I need more warm. So that's just like a little example, and like, but that we need to all come to a place of understanding our own prescription within life.
Mm.
And it's not just with the food that we're taking within our body, it's also about the action that we take in with ourselves, and realizing what's going to work for you. So yeah, so the podcast is definitely a safe place where you can be well and you can be you. And I definitely, with every episode is not just getting like what's ABCDEFG, like it's also getting that little, those talks in between about, allowing us to be safe, allowing us to feel well within ourselves. I'll ask extra questions like, what does your self-care look like? What is an affirmation that you work with? Also bringing those elements in with it, as well as whatever topic they need to talk about as
That's
well.
beautiful. But by the way, I want to jump back to a comment you made. Now I want to turn around a little bit, because you made the very valid point that there's no magic blue pill. But in a sense, there actually is one. The difference is that we're the ones who make the pill. Because like you said, we're the ones who get to decide, I'm going to choose that tool, I'm not going to choose this one. I basically put my pill together. And when I put it all together, it actually is magic. Because look what it ends up producing. It's kind of cool, really. I'm going to let you talk about that. I'm going to let you talk about that for a second, because I got a cat that wants to come in the door. So you can talk. I'll be back in about 20 seconds. So tell us about your view on that.
It's about, like you said, creating your magic blue pill is about creating your prescription. So what is your prescription? It's about you putting all of the tools. It's about you putting all the tools together to create your personal prescription. And once you get your personal prescription together, then you have created your unique magic blue pill.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that a lot. Really, really good. And you're really hitting on something that's very important. We have to take ownership of our own lives in all aspects, because if we don't, we're basically going by somebody else's rules, going by somebody else's decisions. We're going by what somebody else thinks is right for us. And the moment we take ourselves out of that equation, we're basically giving away our power. Right? I mean, because that's where our greatest power is. Our choices are our greatest form of power.
This is why I think I said earlier on that, to get rooted within yourself and get clarity on what works for you. What do you even like? Having these conversations with you and getting clear with yourself, because if you are not rooted within yourself, the outside has plenty of opportunity to get rooted within you, and it may not even agree with you. And so now you're not even in sync with what you're supposed to be in sync with, and you can't understand why you're angry and you upset and you're unhappy and all of these elements are within you, because a lot of times we're not allowing the outside to take root within us. And and it comes from so many different ways, including advertisements, teachers, parents, like people that we think are safe, the products that we think are safe, and so on. If we don't have our full understanding and ask questions and be okay with not agreeing with what maybe the masses are saying, if it doesn't agree, it doesn't mean they're wrong. Just hold space for everyone else and hold space for you.
Especially since we live in a society that tries very hard to push our buttons. I mean, you mentioned advertising. That's one of the main purposes of advertising, to push the buttons. You mentioned the news. That's what the news does. The news pushes buttons. Weather reports. Have you ever seen a weather report that emphasized how wonderful and sunny and warm the day was? No, it's all about the hurricane is starting off the coast of Florida. Details at 11.
It gets you all wound up. And this is why, I feel like so many people are living with so much anxiety now, because of these elements like the news, getting the anxiety worked up in people. My goodness, like it's this is going to happen. And oh my God, like if I take an airplane, it's going to crash, oh my God, like it's like, but how about all of the beautiful things that's constantly happening every day?
Right.
And we take that less than 1% of something that happens and we glorify it all over the news, to put this anxiety of millions of people.
So, absolutely true. Absolutely true. And now I'm kind of curious about something, because you live in Manhattan. I mean, that's the concrete jungle. It does have beautiful Central Park. I mean, it's a gorgeous green area there within the center of Manhattan. But I'm curious, because where I live outside Hartford, Connecticut, so it's kind of a semi-suburban rural area. And I like to get out a lot. I like to get out to nature, because that's one of my best places to go, just to kind of reorient myself, kind of get back into alignment with myself, and to wash all that stuff away. So I'm curious, in an urban environment, how do you go about doing that?
For me personally, with my personal prescription, I don't necessarily think I need the outdoors to
Okay.
wash everything away. I think me just being within my stillness,
Okay.
quiet, helps me wash away, what all of the external energies that may have jump attached onto me. That's just me personally. I mean, I do have a park that's directly like across the street from me,
Nice.
that I can walk through, but it's the urban environment.
Right.
Central Park as well too. There's hundreds of people there at the same time.
It's true. Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily call that a retreat
Mm,
for me to go to Central Park and say, oh, I need to get out there in nature, or I need to go to the park across the street from my home that has trees and nature. But like I say, there's homeless people laying on the bench, there's a lot of energy out there.
right.
So for me personally, I just know for me, sitting on the couch, just being still, being quiet, not saying anything, being in my own meditation is good enough for me. But then again, like I said, that's my prescription, and like you
Yeah.
said, your prescription is getting out there into nature. So yeah, so that's also something to be mindful of, because a lot of wellness platforms may be saying get out into nature and cleanse
Mhm.
yourself, but then I'm like, okay, they're telling me to go out into nature, but then now I don't feel cleansed, because now I'm picking up on all of these people's energies around me.
Yeah.
So another thing to be mindful of these things too, because then someone may think like, I'm in nature, they told me this is what I'm supposed to do, I'm telling me this is what I'm supposed to do, and can't realize they're still having all this anxiety, but then didn't realize because they're surrounded by hundreds of other people. Like this is stuff that we have to start to put in our question.
And anybody who's ever not necessarily lived in a city, perhaps visited a city like I have, you visited New York or
Yeah.
Boston or Philly or something like that. Um, if especially if you're used to living outside of a city, when you go into the city, you feel that huge increase in energy. It's a
Yeah.
massive increase.
Yeah.
And it can affect different people in different ways. Actually, with me, for many years, it created anxiety just being in the city. I could handle it for like a day, maybe
Yeah.
2 days. After that, I was a bleeding
You're like,
mess. It was
let
awful.
me get home.
Yeah, right. I got to get
I
out of
saw the
here.
sights. I
Yeah,
saw the sights.
exactly. Yeah. But I would think that living in that environment day to day, I would think that actually becomes a strengthener. I would think that because you're constantly faced with that, you have to develop your own methods, your own tools, like what you described, going within yourself, being still within yourself, in order to handle the fact that you're constantly inundated by that energy. Am I wrong about that?
You- Um, Again, also, I said earlier how me and my husband are two completely different people, so we receive things differently. I
Hmm.
don't know if you've had any podcasters on talking about the human design.
Sure. Hmm.
What are you?
I'm a manifesting generator.
Okay, so and I'm a projector.
Ah, okay.
And so my energy is low. So I see the energy, I'm not the energy, you are the energy.
Got it.
So with someone like and also my type is I absorb. That's why I also said I know I need to be home,
Ah,
because I go out there and now everyone's energy is jumping on me, and I get in the house, I'm drained. And
interesting.
I'm aware of it as well too, and so I know, and even like the past couple of days I felt like I had I don't know, not so busy, maybe not busy for someone else, maybe not so busy for a generator, but busy for me. And even though I may have mentally wanted to go out to yoga class and do some activities today, I stayed in because I knew I needed to recover from taking on all of that.
Mm,
The energies from the days before. So again, getting to know yourself and being aware of this type of stuff, because I know like generically we may be told to do these things, but there's also still an energy in the city that's like no other, that is still, I don't know, it's like you feel like you still need to be a part of it for some reason. I can't pinpoint
hmm.
what it is. That's why I think people stay and live in shoe boxes that's 4x4 with 15 roommates and pay too much money for rent. And because there is an energy that is like no other. But if you are looking for a place of peace of mind and so on, just being mindful of that for yourself.
Mm.
How
It makes sense. It makes
Mhm.
sense because since you are inundated by it every single day,
Yeah,
it's going to come down to one of two things. You're either able to use that energy to, in some way, take it in and be empowered by it, or you're going to be fighting it. There's not a whole lot of
yeah,
in between. It's going to be one of those two things. So
yeah,
you
exactly.
need to have a strategy for handling it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think like everything in life, like I think we learn to adjust, you know, to your environment.
Hmm.
So if you were born in this, you just understand how to adjust. Or if you were just dropped off in this, in the woods, like you learn to adjust. But I think the conversation today is like, okay, you're learning to adjust, but for your well-being, for your self-care, be mindful of everything. If you're angry, if you're exhausted, if you're like, just take all of those into your mindset, and then now question it. Why? How can I work with this? How can I go along with fixing, not fixing, but addressing it,
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
addressing addressing these elements. And
what you're
so
really talking about is building self-knowledge.
yeah, self-knowledge, exactly. That's perfect.
The better you know
Self-knowledge.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said earlier, like, if you, like the chakra system, it's like the first chakra is the root. Like, just like
Mhm.
that's the goal. Like, get yourself rooted.
Yeah.
Bring that self-awareness, get rooted. Because like I said, if you don't get rooted, those outside forces are gonna come and start getting rooted within you.
Yeah. It's a choice, right?
Hmm.
Which one it's going to be? You get to decide. Is it going to be
Hmm.
what you select, or is it going to be what something else selects?
Yeah. And
Which
like
is
I
going to
said,
be?
this conversation is bringing awareness, because sometimes we don't even know we have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just, like I said at the beginning, I arrived here and I said, okay, I'm here. And I thought this was it. This was the destination, but there
Hmm.
is no destination. We're constantly evolving, or we have the opportunity to evolve if we choose to move that way. But we have to put the work in. It's not going
One,
to.
one of the more interesting perspectives that was brought to me here on the podcast was somebody who came on and said that life, is, from an eternal perspective, is the equivalent of a weekend vacation. I thought that was really interesting.
A weekend vacation.
When you look at it from the perspective, we are eternal beings, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we always have been, we always will be. So from that perspective, the amount of time that we're here is this little tiny segment.
Yeah.
It's like a weekend vacation. It's a getaway.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so let's make the best of it. Let's make
Right, exactly.
because the one thing you can't get back is time.
Yeah, that's true.
Money you can lose and you can regain it back. You can lose your home and regain another home back, but time, you can't get that back. So whatever time has passed, you can't go say, oh, let me just go get more of that. Like, you, whatever, you just got what's left in that bank, in the bank of time. Whatever is past, but now we just have what's left, and it's
So
unknown. So we don't know exactly how much time. So why not make the best of it?
so carpe diem, seize the day,
Yeah, definitely.
every single day. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just
It's an
be.
important reminder. Every single
Hmm.
day is precious,
It is. It really is.
and ultimately, we only have now anyway.
Yeah,
I
this
mean, we don't
present
have
moment.
tomorrow. Tomorrow isn't even promised.
Yeah, we have
Yesterday is
this moment.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yesterday was it. Like, yesterday was is history. Today is, tomorrow's mystery, and today is the present, or
yeah, there you go. I like that.
something like that. It goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, it's just another reminder that we have what is here right now,
Yeah.
and that's actually that's part of the challenge. I think we were talking quite a bit here about the negative thoughts that we deal with and how the strategies for overcoming them. Probably the biggest best strategy I know is to just bring yourself back to right now. and
Yeah.
recognize that all those thoughts you're having probably had to do with the past, might have something to do with the future, but
Mhm.
have almost nothing to do with right now.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm a yogi, and a lot of times, it's you know, the teacher will instruct you to bring it back to your breath, because your
Mm,
breath is happening right now. And when you are focusing on your breath, you're in this moment. And I didn't, and it's the breath that we should be going back to is called the Ujjayi breath. And it's a breath where you're inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your nose. And that's a conscious breath. We're
mm,
usually breathing unconsciously, so we're not thinking about the breath. But
mm-hmm.
when you're in that pose, and if you're thinking about yesterday and what he said, she say, and all that type of stuff, and then you bring it back to that breath, you're in that moment. You're in, because now it's like inhale through the nose, exhale through now you're losing those thoughts of like yesterday, tomorrow, and all that type of stuff, bringing it to that very present moment, because this is the only true moment that is happening. Yesterday is history.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow is a mystery. This is
Mhm.
the only moment that is truly happening at this moment.
And I was just realizing as you were saying that this is probably one of the main reasons why I love podcasting, probably the same for you, because when you do a podcast, you have to be in the current moment. You
Hmm.
really can't be in the future or the past because you can't do a good podcast that way.
Yeah,
It's not possible,
yeah, to keep.
especially when you're doing it conversationally like this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have to be listening to you. I have to be absorbing what you're saying. The only way to do
Hmm.
that is to stay now,
Yep. And I start thinking about what you're making for dinner. Do you have
right?
the onions?
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's and when you learn to do that, when you learn to stay in the now and be a part of the conversation right now, there's joy in that.
Yeah,
There's a great deal of joy in that.
yeah, it is.
I
It,
think it kind of surprised me, to
it's a
be
gift.
honest. It is a gift.
It's a
It
gift
really
too.
is.
Hmm.
And it was a surprise. It was a surprise gift.
Yeah, yeah. But you never know what you're going to receive in that gift as
True.
well too.
Yeah.
And if we're thinking about like, oh, like even trying to think about what you think you should say, and not receiving what the person's giving you,
Mhm.
you're losing the gift of the value of what they may have had to tell you. So having being able to be engaged in the conversation in that present moment is truly a gift, because you just never know what you may receive.
Totally, totally agree. In fact, that's
Mhm.
been one of my favorite points to make over the years, which is I love the perspectives. I
Yeah.
have more appreciation for perspective now than I've ever had in my life. Simply just from doing this podcast and listening to so many perspectives, not all of which that I agreed with. In fact,
Yeah.
the ones that I disagreed with actually were better in some ways because they
Hmm.
gave me a perspective I hadn't thought about and invited me to appreciate that perspective in a way I hadn't appreciated it before.
Yeah.
Of course, that's when I do my greatest growth, right? So I
Yeah.
really appreciate the perspective. I think perspective is wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Like it wouldn't be any fun if we're like all the same all the time. Like
Oh God,
it's predictable.
so boring.
Yeah, and so predictable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So that's beautiful. I'm happy that we brought awareness and more mindfulness to that, because
Right.
that's when things a lot of times things I feel like have to be on repetition. Like we may hear something, you hear it, kind of flies by, but if it keeps coming, that's why commercials are constantly coming at you, because if you
Right.
see that commercial one time, oh, but if it keeps drilling in your head that you must have whatever they're trying to sell you, then now you're going into Target and you're like, oh yeah, I hear I'm supposed to have that right there. I keep seeing stuff about it. you
Mm-hmm.
know and then the same thing with bringing the mindfulness about this stuff that I feel like is high vibrational conversation, because it's about this person elevating within them lies with their mindset, their thinking. It's just so important. So always so grateful for these conversations, because it just brings the mindfulness around it, the mindfulness of the self-talk, the I am, the present moment. This is all the stuff, like, and you don't have to buy any of this. This is all stuff that you have within yourself.
Mm. Very
You don't
true.
have to buy a $200 cream for your happiness.
Nope. You
You
can
know,
if you want to. It's a
you can, if
choice,
you want, but you don't have to.
but you don't have to.
having these conversations and just, with tools that we are capable of having within ourselves is next level.
Yes, totally agree with that. Totally agree. You also have a book too. You wrote a book on this topic. What's the book called again?
Actually, it's a self-care book, and it's called
Oh, there we go.
Your Guide to Bringing More Acts of Self-Care Workbook. And I
It's a
put
workbook. Oh, okay.
yeah, I put in the subtitle, "You Hold the Key to Your Life's Journey," because I wanted that to be the reminder that you hold the key, just as we've been talking about the prescription, like, throughout this podcast as well too. Like, everyone's prescription is going to be different, and you hold that. We may all have keys, but just remember, my key will not open the door to your house.
Mm-hmm.
And your key will not open the door to my house. So we have to remember that we hold the keys to our own life's journeys. We don't have to look for someone else's key to open our door. We have the key, and it's up to us to be aware of it, bring the mindfulness to it, be like, you know what? This is my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my life. So this book is a self-care book, because I really truly feel that self-care is for all of us, not for just someone that's stressed out or the mommy that doesn't have any time on her hands. Self-care is for every single person, male or female. And I didn't realize I was missing self-care 5 years ago. I had absolutely no idea I was missing it. But, once I started to unknowingly go on my journey and start, gathering all of these tools, I didn't look to gather the tools, but with listening to podcasts and putting literature, listening to Audible, and just starting to on social media follow a different type of, all of these tools.
Mhm.
The conversation we're having today, for whoever is ready to receive it, they should have been able to grab some tools from this episode. I feel like we definitely spoke some very high vibrational, informative information.
I bet you
And
did.
so as I started gathering these tools by just putting myself in the places to gather them, then I started to realize, wait a minute, I'm creating self-care for myself, and then the conversation constantly kept coming up about self-care. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. I had everything in this book wasn't in my lifestyle just 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And so it's a small but mighty book. It's just under 100 pages, but it's a book that's expected to take you over the next 3 months. So it's 12 chapters, 12 weeks. So each chapter is expected to take you over a week.
Okay.
So, just to kind of give you an example, the second chapter is affirmations. And we
Yeah.
talked about the power of I am.
Yep.
So I'm giving you the talk of, like, reminding you how powerful the words I am are, and to be mindful of that. I did not have affirmations 5 years ago. I did not speak these high vibrational words to myself. I did not say things like, I am worthy of a beautiful life. Like, just these, and if like I said, if I didn't have this at 40 something years old, that means other people are walking around not having these tools in their toolkit. So we go through, so example of week 2 is affirmations. So every day you show up to this book and you go through your 5 affirmations for that day. And then, so day 1, I am worthy of a beautiful life. I am a blessing. I love myself. I am enough. In the 5th affirmation, you fill in the blank. Now you take the opportunity to find out what resonates with you. And then I ask questions after each day, a question about whatever, the affirmations were. Do you believe in the affirmations when you say them to yourselves? Now it's time for you to get honest and start talking with yourself. Again, these are starting to build roots within yourself, because it's very easy to be shallow and I know what affirmations are. I don't need that stuff. I know who I am and stuff like that. But allowing you to have questions, to start digging deeper. Do you like them? And I'm not telling you that you have to have affirmations within your life when you walk away from this book. But I say this week we're focusing on affirmations at the end. How do you feel about this? Will you be keeping them? Do you know, will you apply them in your lifestyle? So like once we get to the chapter 3, I'm like, we're not going to talk about affirmations anymore, but be mindful to see where you can fit them within your life. Do you say them when you're feeling down? Do you say them in the morning? You know, but now you have this tool that you can go dig in your toolkit to get when you need to grab them. It's not you know, and it's up to you to create your prescription after playing with all of these tools that I have supplied in the book. So you know, I'm not saying at the end of this book you need to have affirmations, journaling, meditation, and you know, all of these acts, movement in your life. I'm introducing them to you and then allowing you to dig within yourself to see how can you apply these tools within your life to make your personal prescription.
That goes back to what we were talking about earlier about creating your own magic blue pill. Because
Yeah.
when you do have the tools to draw upon, you
Mhm.
can be selective. And
Yes.
it doesn't take all that much time to figure out this tool. I love that one. That one doesn't work so well for me, so I'll leave that one for the moment. But this one over here, I love, so I'm going to combine that with the first one. You can literally start piecing your own tool set together, the one that works for you, just the way you were describing it.
Yeah. And even like at the on the last day of affirmations, I leave the affirmations blank. Now it's up to you to write your
Mhm.
own affirmations. I was saying the affirmations that I said, but
Right.
they may not have resonated for you. You know, so now that you understand what affirmations are at this point, after 6 days of saying them, having conversation about them in the book, and in writing, answering questions, now you know, hopefully you will be equipped with understanding it on the level where you can say, what do I need to say for myself to bring my vibration in a higher place?
And like you were saying, it's really valuable to have that tool set
Yeah.
available to you because you've taken the time to kind of piece it together, because
Mm-hmm.
life throws things at us. Life throws things at us all the time. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we live in a world of contrast and polarity. You know, stuff
Mm-hmm.
happens. And
Yeah.
when stuff happens, especially when the worst stuff happens, you need the tool set. That's when you need it the
Exactly.
most.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like it's an exam at that point. Okay, did you study? Did you do all of your tool putting together? If you didn't, you're gonna have a hard time getting through this hard thing that you're going through right now. But if you have your
Exactly.
tool set, now you're gonna get through it a little bit easier. Yeah.
Exactly. Again, getting those roots, like getting yourself rooted and planted so you can, when, like you said, when life throws that curveball at you, you're there.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm rooted. What do I need to pull out my toolkit to keep me safe right now?
That's a
So yeah,
really good thing.
thank you.
Talk a little bit. We've kind of talked around the importance of developing self care, self love, self appreciation. But I want to zero in on what that means to you. When you think of the words self care, self love, what do you think of?
I think of it being individualistic because when it comes to self-care and self-love, what may work for me may be completely different for what works for you. So I
Mhm.
say it's very individualistic. You know, for example, my daughter said to me the other week, she had her clothes all over the floor, and she's into fashion. So she was like, "Oh, I love, you know," and she was like, if she said, it makes me so happy to put my outfits together, to, you know, create these outfits, put
Mm.
accessories and all this type of stuff. She said it makes me happy. And she truly does. Like when she goes out every day, it's like, oh my God, your outfit. Oh, you know, people see it because she's pouring her love into what she does there.
Yeah.
Me, I have absolutely no desire. If someone put an outfit in front of me and said, create this amazing look, I'll be like, oh. So that's not love for me. That's not self-care for me. For her, that's
Mhm.
self-care, that's self-love, because she's working with something that draws love outside of her. For
Mhm.
me, it's like, oh, I know they say maybe I'm a girl, I should play with clothes and put outfits together, but I have no desire to do that.
Mhm.
You know, so that's why I say it's very individualistic. You know, like people may say, oh, do self-care, and the journaling is all about self-care, and someone may be like, yo, I can't handle it, I can't sit with this book, it doesn't make any sense to me, even though every person is saying it. It doesn't work. So that's why I have to say it's very individualistic. You gotta figure out what does self-love and self-care look like for you.
Yeah, it's basically getting to know yourself on a deeper level than you
Yes,
had before.
getting to know yourself and
Yeah,
seeing what lights the fire within you. And that's where you're going, to find that love and that self-care within yourself, because you're not forcing yourself to do it. It's
right.
natural. And that's the other thing. You want flow. You don't want restriction and all that,
Mhm,
fighting. But everyone says you're supposed to do it this way.
mhm. Yeah,
You want flow. So I say individualistic and flow.
that's beautiful. I really love that.
Thank
It,
you.
as usual, we fly through an hour, and all of a sudden, like, oh my God, we're almost done. We can't end this. This is too good. A couple things we got to do before we finish up. First of all, you got to tell people, how do they find the book, and how do they find your podcast?
Oh, thank you. Well, the book is on Amazon, so the title is so long, but I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes. But
I'll include it in. Yes.
yes, your guide to bringing more acts of self care by Unique Figueroa. You can just put in my name, and then the book will pop right back up. It's on Amazon as of now. But maybe when you're listening to it, maybe in Target, maybe in Walmart. I don't
Hey, that'd
know.
be
But
cool.
is yes, why not?
Why not? Yeah. Good
Why
stuff.
not? So yes, and then also Becoming Unique podcast is basically available on all podcast streaming apps, or at least all the popular ones, which is Apple, Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio. I guess the list can keep going to Google. Um, yeah, so you can find Becoming Unique on all of those platforms, and there is tons of information out there. That you can find on the Becoming Unique podcast, from Ayurvedic doshas, Ayurvedic morning routines, gut health, and like it can just keep going on and on and on topics for us to all vibrate higher within our lives.
That's a beautiful thing. I'm really
Thank
loving
you.
that. One other thing I got to tell you too. Well, two things I got to tell you. First thing I got to tell you is I love what you're doing. I mean,
Thank
I really love
you.
what you're doing. You're doing some great stuff.
Thank
And
you.
I love that you found a way to bring your name into it in a really cool way, because we're talking about stuff that lots of people have talked about in lots of different ways. But
Mhm.
as you pointed out, you have to do all this. You have to put your tool set together. You have to know yourself well enough to know how to put your own tool set together. You have to know your own likes and dislikes, your
Mhm.
own preferences. That's what being unique is all about. So when I hear you talking about your podcast becoming unique, that's what I hear. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I hear. How to do exactly that. And I'm loving that. That's really, really cool. The other
Yeah.
thing I need to do too before we part company is something I do with all my guests, because everybody who comes onto this program is a giver. You are certainly a giver. You've been giving with your podcast for the last 2 years. You're giving with your workbook, with all the appearances that you make, the stuff that you write. And there are many, many people you've reached and touched. Many of whom you'll never meet. You'll never see them. You don't know
Yeah.
who they are, right?
Mhm.
They're the listeners of the podcast, or the listeners of the podcast you're on, all that kind of stuff. And there's so many of them. I think we need to be recognizing the impact that each of us are having on all those people that we never meet and never see. So, on behalf of all those people you've never met, you've never seen, who you've done so much for, I want to thank you for all you've been giving to them, and all that you're continuing to give to them in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead. So, thank you on
Oh,
their behalf.
thank you. I received that. I received you giving me my flowers, and the same to you. Namaste. So the
Thank
light
you.
in me honors the light in you. And yeah, the same to you. Thank you so much for doing what you do, and for so long now, and just spreading the word on what you're doing, and a happy life, and a life full of abundance and all of the positivity, because we have enough negativity out there. It's
There's
so
plenty of
beautiful.
that. Yeah, we don't need to fill that in. No.
Yeah, it's so beautiful that you have continued to keep a platform full of positivity and high vibration.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining me today. Jodielynn will be sad that she missed this one, but she'll listen to it, I'm sure. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.